वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 22, Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the four Kumaras. Text number 27 onwards. So Sanat Kumar is further speaking to Prithu Maharaj. Dagdha Shev Mukta Samasta Tadguno Nevat Mano Bharantar Vichaste Parat Manor Yad Vyavadhanam Purastat Swapne Yatha Purushas Tad Vinashe. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends distinctions between actions executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and the supersoul, which was existing before self-realization, is annihilated. When a dream is over, there is no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer. So, the distinction between the soul and the supersoul is annihilated. It doesn't mean the soul becomes a supersoul at the time of liberation. No. All it means is the purpose becomes the same. Supersoul is always transcendental, soul also. Soul is transcendental, but the consciousness was impure. So at the time of liberation or self-realization, it comes to its original constitutional position, spiritual position. Purport. As described by Srila Rupa Goswami, one must be devoid of all material desires. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires, there is no longer need for speculative knowledge or fruitive activities. In that condition, it is to be understood that one is free from the material body. The example is already given above. A coconut which is dry is loosened from its outward husk. This is the stage of liberation. As said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Mukti, liberation means Swarupena Vyavastiti, being situated in one's own constitutional position. All material desires are present as long as one is in the bodily concept of life. But when one realizes that he is an eternal servant of Krishna, his desires are no longer material. A devotee acts in this consciousness. In other words, when material desires in connection with the body are finished, one is actually liberated. So as long as we have the body, we will have material desires. And as soon as the material desires are not there, then one is liberated. One's connection with the body is finished, and then one is liberated. So this is all what we are trying to do. Bhakti, what does it do? It spiritualizes our desires. Slowly, 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 all the material desires go away. Even the subtle material desires. Some of them go away because we understand they're not good for us or we don't even want them. And some of them go away because Krishna removes them. Krishna frustrates us to such an extent that no matter how hard we work to gratify, to fulfill those desires, not going to happen. Because it's not good for us, whatever the desire may be. So that's how Krishna intervenes. So the point is, he wants us to get to spiritual world. He wants us to have spiritual desires. So whatever he has to do, he will do it. When one is liberated from the material qualities, he does not do anything for his personal sense gratification. At that time, all activities performed by him are absolute. In the conditioned state, there are two kinds of activities. One acts on behalf of the body, and at the same time, he acts to become liberated. The devotee, when he is completely free from all material desires or all material qualities, transcends the duality of action for the body and the soul. Then the bodily concept of life is completely over. It transcends the duality of action for the body and the soul because there is only one action left for the soul. Only the spiritual activities are left. But in the conditioned state, there are two kinds of activities. So this duality will go on till we are in the conditioned state. Iha yasya hare hridasya karmana manasa gira nikhilashafe api avasthasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. When one is completely fixed in the service of the Lord, he is a liberated person in any condition of life. He is called Jivan Mukta, liberated even within this body. In such a liberated condition, there is no distinction between actions for sense gratification and actions for liberation. Although from outwardly it might look like this person is just trying to enjoy his senses, but for that person, because he is at that state, it doesn't matter. For him, everything is for the pleasure of Krishna. Just like Arjun. Arjun was busy in killing people, wholesale killing of people. But since he was doing it for the pleasure of Krishna, those activities, normally it would be very sinful. But especially the activities when he had to kill people out of the way, going out of the way or breaking the rules or rules and regulations of the warfare, like killing Karna, killing Bhishma, killing Jayadratha. There's so many he killed. So for a normal person, a regular person, it could be very sinful to kill people like this. But for Arjun, that was devotional service and pure devotional service. But Krishna himself was there and Krishna was very pleased. And in case of Karna, in case of Bhishma and Jayadratha, in all these cases, Krishna is the one who orchestrated their deaths like the way he wanted. And Arjun just acted as an instrument. When one is liberated from the desires of sense gratification, he has no longer to suffer the reactions of lamentation or illusion. Activities performed by the karmis and jnanis are subject to lamentation and illusion. But a self-realized, liberated person acting only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead experiences none. This is the stage of oneness, of merging into the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that the individual soul, while keeping his individuality, no longer has separate interests. So individual soul always remains, his independence or individuality is always there, but he does not have any separate interest other than whatever the Supreme Lord wants. He is fully in the service of the Lord and he has nothing to do for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, he sees only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not himself. His personal interests completely perishes. When a person comes out of a dream, the dream vanishes. While dreaming, a person may consider himself a king and see the royal paraphernalia, his soldiers, etc. But when the dream is over, he does not see anything beyond himself. Similarly, a liberated person understands that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, acting in accordance with the desire of the Supreme Lord. And as such, there is no distinction between himself and the Supreme Lord, although both of them retain their individuality. This is the perfect conception of oneness in relation to the Supersoul and the Soul. So the other oneness that Mayavadis talk about, that we are going to merge or we are going to become Supersoul, that's all nonsense, never going to happen. But the beautiful example is given when the dream is over. In the dream, we can think of I'm a king and I have this queen and the soldiers and the palace, and I'm in a fight with another king, and either I get killed or he gets killed, and then I enjoy or I'm sad, whatever. Well, but when the dream is over, it's just the dreamer. Everything else is gone, not there. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. When we come to the level of liberation or self-realization, we understand all these things that we see around us is nothing but a dream. It is real in the sense it's all there, but it's dream in the sense it's not our original position. And we are in complete ignorance, just like sleep is ignorance. The not having proper knowledge is also ignorance, and we are in ignorance. And when devotees ask Prabhupada, when you see, or Prabhupada himself said, I don't know the exact context, but the point that Prabhupada made is very important. When you see all these material people, what do you see? And Prabhupada said, I see only dead bodies flapping their hands. Means they're all literally dead to the science of self-realization, dead to the knowledge. And they're just flapping their bodies, flapping their hands, flapping their legs, and running here and there. And these days we are not even running around, we are locked up in our houses. But these are just dead bodies, ignorant, completely ignorant. But Maya makes us look so sweet, so relishable, so attractive that we want to remain in this dead body flashing business. And any talk of the spiritual world, any talk of devotion service, any talk of higher planets, it all sounds like it's mythical. Nothing is real. But this is what when the scriptures talk about, we have to take it properly. Right now we are dreaming. Right now we are just dreaming. I'm in India, I'm in America. I am boy, I'm girl, I'm Indian and I'm American, I'm Hindu and I'm Muslim. It's all dream. Soul has nothing to do with all this. Nothing. Atmanam indriyartham chaparam yadu bhayor api satyasya upadhau ve puman pashyati nanyada. When the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason he becomes subjected to designations. But when one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. So that is a transcendental position. So even while in this material body, if we start doing that, fulfilling the desires of the Lord, then then we are in liberated position. Being covered by material desires, a spirit soul is also considered to be covered by designations belonging to a particular type of body. Thus, he considers himself an animal, a man, a demigod, a bird, beast, etc. In so many ways, he is influenced by false identification caused by false egotism and being covered by illusory material desires. He distinguishes between matter and spirit and being covered by illusory material desires. And this covering actually is so strong, so very strong. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, the example is given of this covering. Three kinds of examples are given: smoke on fire, just like how fire is covered by smoke, how mirror is covered by dust, and how embryo is covered by the womb. So embryo covered by the womb is very thick covering, so it's considered in ignorance, so just like the plants and the trees. Mirror covered by dust is less thick, and it's more in the passion, and it's compared to the animals. And the smoke covered by fire. So that covering is very thin and it's very transient, temporary. So that covering is considered for the soul in the human form of body. But nevertheless, they all are covered. So as long as one is covered by material desires, he thinks himself the master or the enjoyer. Thus he acts for sense gratification and becomes subjected to material pangs, happiness, and distress. But when one is freed from such a concept of life, he is no longer subjected to designations, and he envisions everything as spiritual in connection with the Supreme Lord. This is explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Anasaktasya vishayan yataraham upayunjata nirvanda Krishna sambandha yuktam vairagyam uchyate. The liberated person has no attachment for anything material or for sense gratification. He understands that everything is connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not give up anything. So, yuktam vairagyam uchyate, yukta vairagya, not falgu vairagya. Falgu vairagya means dry renunciation, where everything, the thought is, oh, this is all Maya, so I'm not going to touch it, I'm not going to use it. But Vaishnavas think of yuktam vairagyam because everything belongs to Krishna, everything is Krishna's energy. So they try to use everything in Krishna's service. Only catch is, in the process, we should not be doing like eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, out of 100, 20% for Krishna's service and 80% for my service. Because material world, material senses, conditioned soul, he has propensity to cheat, and that propensity even goes to cheat Krishna. The liberated person has no attachment for anything material or for sense gratification. He understands that everything is connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not give up anything. There is no question of renouncing anything because the Paramhansa knows how to engage everything in the service of the Lord. Originally, everything is spiritual, nothing is material. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita also it is explained that a Mahabhagavat, a highly advanced devotee, has no material vision. Although he sees trees, mountains, and other living entities moving here and there, he sees all as the creation of the Supreme Lord, and with reference to the context, sees only the Creator and not the created. In other words, he no longer distinguishes between the created and the Creator. He sees only the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything. He sees Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna. This is oneness. So that is the position of a Mahabhagavat. But a Madhyamadhikari, he differentiates or discriminates based on if a person, if it is Supreme Lord, if he is dealing with Supreme Lord, or another devotee, or an envious person, or an ignorant person. But the point is, that is a level of Mahabhagavat. He sees Krishna in everything, and everything in Krishna. It's not an artificial vision, it's his realization. This is how he sees. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha parasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Only because of different causes does a person see a difference between himself and others. Just as one sees the reflection of body appearing differently manifested on water, on oil, or in a mirror. Another nice example given. Let's see. The spirit soul is one, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is manifested in Svansha and Vibhin Ansha expansions. The Jivas are Vibhin Ansha expansions. The different incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are Svansha expansions. Thus, there are different potencies of the Supreme Lord, and there are different expansions of the different potencies. In this way, for different reasons, there are different expansions of the same one principle, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This understanding is real knowledge. But when the living entity is covered by the upadhi or designated body, he sees differences. Exactly as one sees differences in reflection of oneself on water, on oil, or in a mirror. When something is reflected on water, it appears to be moving. When it is reflected on ice, it appears fixed. Ice or mirror. Here, Shloka says mirror, but Prabhupada used the word ice. When it is reflected on oil, it appears hazy. The subject is one, but under different conditions, it appears differently. When the qualifying factor is taken away, the whole appears to be one. In other words, when one comes to the Paramhansa or perfectional stage of life by practicing Bhakti Yoga, he sees only Krishna everywhere. For him, there is no other objective. It's a nice example of seeing ourselves or our reflection on water, on oil, or in a mirror. So in a mirror, the reflection will be steady, will be very clear. In water, the reflection will be moving. And on oil, the reflection would be moving and hazy at the same time. But the person is same. So it depends on our consciousness, how we are looking. So similarly, Krishna is the super soul is one. It's just how we see our relationship with them, or how we see everybody else. Or like soul is same, soul is divine, soul is transcendental, spiritual soul. But it depends upon our vision, how we see him. In conclusion, due to different causes, the living entity is visible in different forms as an animal, human being, demigod, tree, etc. Actually, every living entity is a marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is explained that one who actually sees a spirit soul does not distinguish between a learned Brahman and a dog, an elephant, or a cow. Pandita Samdarshina. One who is actually learned sees only the living entity, not the outward covering. Differentiation is therefore the result of different karma or fruitive activities. And when we stop fruitive activities, turning them into acts of devotion, we can understand that we are not different from anyone else, regardless of the form. This is only possible in Krishna consciousness. In this moment, there are many different races of men from all parts of the world participating. But because they think of themselves as servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they do not differentiate between black and white, yellow and red. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore the only means to make the living entities free of all designations. So, sarva upadhi vinirmuktam. So, all the upadhis, all the titles, designations can only go away, or we don't deal with those titles when we come to this level of spirit soul or transcendental level. And that's only possible by bhakti, by Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we see everybody has different bodies or different titles. This person is white or black, or is a manager, or is an engineer, or is a house, or she's a housewife, or whatever. We give so many titles, except seeing him as servant of the Supreme Lord. Indriya Vishya Krishna Rakshiptam Dhyayatam Manaha Chetnam Harate Buddhe Swa-buddhes tambastoyam ivhaha. When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. In this verse, it is very nicely explained how our original Krishna consciousness becomes polluted and we gradually become almost completely forgetful of a relationship with the Supreme Lord. In the previous verse, it is recommended that we should always keep in touch with the devotional service of the Lord, so that the blazing fire of devotional service can gradually burn into ashes the material desires, and we can become liberated from the repetition of birth and death. This is also how we can indirectly keep a staunch faith in the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the mind is allowed to think of sense gratification continuously, it becomes the cause of our material bondage. If a mind is simply filled with sense gratification, even though we want Krishna consciousness, by continuous practice we can forget the subject matter of sense gratification. If our mind is simply filled with sense gratification, even though we want Krishna consciousness, so that is a situation for all of us. By continuous practice, we can forget the subject matter of sense gratification. So continuous, determined, sincere practice. So the mind is also compared to an animal, like a horse. So those who have seen, I don't think most of us have taken classes on horse riding. But if you see a person newly sitting on the horse, trying to learn how to ride the horse. The teaching is do not hold that lagam too tight. If we keep it too tight, then the horse will just jump around. And if we leave it too loose, then the horse will go the way wherever he wants to go. So similar situation is with the mind. In the beginning, if we keep it too strict, then as I said, there could be withdrawal symptoms, or the mind becomes very obstinate. I'm not going to do it. And if we just let it do whatever it wants, then we cannot make any progress. So sometimes we have to make the mind hear that no, strict, it is strict decision that this time this is what we are going to do. And because the mind doesn't have the real taste of bhakti yet, so it needs some of its own downtime. So downtime is there. Okay, today something we can do, whatever. But slowly, this is a continuous practice. When we continuously practice, that is what sadhana bhakti is, Vedhi sadhana bhakti, following the rules and regulations. We keep on practicing. Then slowly, first the mind will understand that just like best thing is about chanting in the morning. Now weather is changing in India also. So in the morning it will be like, it's so cozy, the blanket or the rajai is so nice, so comfortable, so cozy. Why get up so early to chant? I can get up later and chant. What's so big deal? Vidupriya just keeps on talking, babbling around and pushing us for chanting. He doesn't know anything. So mind will talk like that. But if we still keep on, no, I have to get up to chant and then I can take rest later, no problem. Who's saying no to the rest? It's right now. This time is for chanting. Then slowly, mind will follow. Because soul is very, very powerful. It's part and parcel of Krishna. And mind is material. Mind has to listen to the soul. But when we start listening to the mind, then the problem happens. So that is continuous practice. If one takes up the sannyas order of life, but is not able to control the mind, he will think of objects of sense gratification, namely family, society, expensive house, etc. Even though he goes to the Himalayas or the forest, his mind will continue thinking of the objects of sense gratification. In this way, gradually one's intelligence will be affected. When intelligence is affected, one loses his original taste for Krishna consciousness. So in that regard, well, somebody had written nice lines. I would rather be in the mountains thinking of the church than in the church thinking of mountains. Thinking of mountains means going to the mountains and for a vacation and spending some nice time there. So this is all game of the mind. And that's what Gita says, Bandhur Atmanascha. Means if the mind is if it is controlled, it's the best of the friends. But if it is not controlled, it's the worst of the enemies. So we want friends everywhere, especially near us. And mind is very close to the soul. Intelligence and mind are like the next door neighbors of the soul. So we want friends in the next door. So it just needs training, 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 training. The example given here is very appropriate. If a big lake is covered all around by long kusha grass, just like columns, the waters dry up. Similarly, when the big columns of material desires increase, the clear water of consciousness is dried up. Therefore, these columns of kusha grass should be cut or thrown away from the very beginning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed that if from the very beginning we do not take care of unwanted grass to the paddy fields, the fertilizing agents of water will be used by them, and the paddy plants will dry up. The material desire for sense enjoyment is a cause of our fall down in this material world, and thus we suffer the threefold miseries and continuous birth, death, old age, and disease. However, if we turn our desires towards a transcendental loving service of the Lord, our desires become purified. We cannot kill desires, we have to purify them of different designations. If we constantly think of being a member of a particular nation, society, or family and continuously think about them, we become very strongly entangled in the conditioned life of birth and death. But if our desires are applied to the service of the Lord, they become purified, and thus we become immediately freed from material contamination. In the shloka, the example given, if around a pond there are big grass, and Prabhupada says kusha grass. So long kusha grass. If it is there, then what they do, they suck up all the water from the lake, and the lake can get dry. So similarly, if around our lake of Krishna consciousness, there are the grasses, big grasses of desires, material desires, then the lake of Krishna consciousness can get dry, can dry up. Because then we'll be too busy serving those material desires. Because they seem so attractive, so nice. If I have a big house, then I will start chanting. Only if I have a nice job, I'll start chanting. If I get this position at the work or in the temple or in any other way, I'll do my bhakti. If I get a nice wife who's very subordinate, very loving, which is something impossible to get these days, then I will chant or I'll do my bhakti. If I only have nice children, beautiful daughter, very nice boy, son, then I'll chant. And if they're settled properly, so many desires. They're unlimited material desires. So how much they'll suck up the water or the energy from our efforts in Krishna consciousness. So this is what Prabhupada says, we have to purify the desires. And then purify and engage the desires in the service of Krishna. If our desires are applied to the service of the Lord, they become purified. And thus we become immediately freed from material contamination. But sometimes, or most of the times in our beginning stages, as I said, around the lake, there could be tall grass. So these desires, they look very attractive. Very attractive, so we start feeding them. And by feeding them, See, in our heart, this Bhakti Lata Bij is sown by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. And just like previously we read, we have to nourish it. Nourish the Bhakti Lata Bij by the process of hearing and chanting. Cultivate it. And then the Bhakti Lata will grow, creeper will grow, take shelter, and then grow all the way to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, and then deliver the fruit, nice fruit of love of Radha and Krishna. But if this process of chanting and hearing or devotional service starts feeding this grass or the weeds in the field, so instead of Bhakti Lata creeper getting developed, we are developing or nurturing, nourishing these weeds. And these weeds, they look much better than the original creeper, than the spiritual nice creeper. These weeds look much better. The plants come out, they can bear nice flowers, fruits. Of course, those fruits will be poisonous. Poisonous in the sense that they'll take us away from Bhakti. Our Bhakti Lata creeper can dry up. But since they look so attractive, so charming, then we slowly give up feeding Bhakti Lata creeper, Bhakti Lata or Bhakti creeper. And then we keep on feeding these weeds, and slowly the whole field can dry up. So how do we know we are feeding the creeper or feeding the weeds? Chances are on our own we cannot find out. The devotees around us, they can tell us, what are we doing? So that is why, that's another reason association is very important. Brishyati anusmritischittam jnana bhrinsha smritikshe tadarodham kavyam prahur atma pavanam atmanah. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost. The living entity or the soul is ever existing and eternal. It cannot be lost. But learned scholars say that it is lost when actual knowledge is not working. That is the difference between animals and human beings. According to less intelligent philosophers, animals have no soul. But factually, animals have souls. Due to the animals' gross ignorance, however, it appears that they have lost their souls. Without the soul, a body cannot move. That is the difference between a living body and a dead body. When the soul is out of the body is called dead. The soul is said to be lost when there is no proper knowledge exhibited. Our original consciousness is Krishna consciousness because we are part and parcel of Krishna. When this consciousness is misguided and one is put into material atmosphere which pollutes the original consciousness, one thinks that he is a product of the material elements. Thus one loses his real remembrance of his position as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a man who sleeps forgets himself. In this way, when the activities of proper consciousness are checked, all the activities of the lost soul are performed on a false basis. At the present moment, human civilization is acting on a false platform of bodily identification. Therefore, it can be said that the people of the present age have lost their souls, and in this respect, they are no better than animals. So when remembrance is lost, all knowledge is acquired on the basis of a false foundation. So this is our foundation. Foundation is what? I am this body. That's it. This is our beginning of ignorance. And then all the activities. If the foundation of any building is not properly placed, then the whole building will not be built properly. Either it will sway to one side, or it can fall down at any time, or it won't be built because the foundation is not correct. So right now our foundation is I am this body. Our foundation should be I am a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. So then whatever we do based on which foundation, then it will give that result only. So false foundation or wrong foundation, the wrong building, and then further on accidents, and then more wrong foundation next life, and again worse building, and then more and more problems. So this is what scriptures, this is what sadhus, guru, sadhu, guru, shastra, that is there. They are there to guide us properly, to show us what is the right way to live, what is the right correct foundation, what is the right realization, what is the right knowledge. That's what the shastras are there for. And guru and sadhu are two eyes through which we study the scriptures or try to understand the scriptures. So if it is not following that, then the soul is lost. Because if dharmen hina pashubhir narana, if we are not following that dharma means the real dharma of being Krishna conscious, then we are just like animals, no better than animals. Animals cannot perform or search after. Who am I? Who's God? What's my relationship with God? So if as a human being is also not doing that, then he is no better than an animal. And when he has developed this kind of consciousness, this body, the next body he will be awarded of an animal. So human form we got as the purpose is for self-realization. And if you don't fulfill that purpose, don't even try to fulfill that purpose, means we are misusing the facility, the best facility given by Krishna. Then Krishna says, okay, you're not eligible for that kind of facility. So I still have to give you some other facility. So he gives the facility of an animal, the body of an animal. Next slide. Or it could be animal, it could be even insect, it could be plant or tree or a bird. It could be anything. So all we have to do is not to misuse this human form of life, live like a human being, not like an animal, and then make progress slowly and steadily. Of course, we can make fast progress as well. It depends upon us. Okay, so I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, these few verses which you read today, it's so clear and concise, and
Yeah.
it just opens up the thing, like why we've got this body and all those things. Amazing, Prabhuji.
Yeah, you should study them again, the purport.
Yeah.
It will clarify many things.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Okay, so we'll stop
Hare
here.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Prabhuji, question. How do we know what Krishna wants of us, Prabhuji? Because one is you have already explained, in fact, ki Naukri karo and then be Krishna conscious and everything. You've already explained that. But let's say, in fact, in reality, everyday basis, there are numerous actions that we take. So, in fact, it becomes a little difficult. How do we know what Krishna wants, Prabhuji? If you can guide us, please.
See, Prabhupada has given us this insight that the bona fide guru, then he guides us. He is considered a representative of Krishna. So he guides us. Or Krishna as Chaitya as Super Soul also can guide us from within. So one thing is for sure what Prabhupada said, general instructions of chanting and hearing, reading, and following the principles. That's definitely what Krishna wants from all of us. Now, specifically, anything else he wants from us, either he can tell us through a bona fide guru, or he can himself guide us from within. So it depends upon how surrendered we are. So the guidance, instructions will come accordingly.
Prabhuji, so will it be then kind of slightly okay, if not completely okay, to consider that following the four regulative principles and chanting our rounds properly at the onset is what Krishna wants, and beyond that, I think on a gradual basis, Krishna is going to guide us in our day-to-day dealings as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we can say so. And reading Prabhupada's books, I mean, that's definitely there.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. I think that gives a little more perspective to it. So thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we can stop here. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Jai
Hare
Shri.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very
Jai
much.
Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.